Ready.
Thanks, everyone. Welcome to the Clean Call for what day is it? Tuesday, July 19th. I'm going to start. Gina's probably going to facilitate today, but I wanted to start with a announcement, which is that actually I have a couple announcements. The Climate Generation Summer Institute is happening this week, and we're all very excited about that. And Clean is running one of the cohort days tomorrow. So that's fun. If you haven't been part of that before, you should check it out. And I'll put the link to that in the chat. And then the other link I just put in was that we've been working on a big project with some students to reorganize the teleconference call recordings pages. So you'll see we've actually removed the old pages, and now we have a new page that has the recorded teleconference presentations from the past. We didn't bring every call over, but we still have them all archived. So if you want anything before, I think it was about 2015, just contact us and we can get it to you, but we're just not going to keep it on Circ necessarily. But this is a nice new feature because each teleconference call now has its own page with description, and each links to the recording, and if it was on Zoom, then the chat transcript and any presentation slides from presentations. And then the really nice thing about the way we've set it up now, though, is that you can search. So you can actually do a search feature through past presentations. And we don't have it set up the way we did where each year has its own page anymore. But if you want to see all the calls for a certain year, you can just type in that into the search and it'll pull up all the calls for that year. Just put the year into the search. But you can put other things into the search as well. So we thought this would actually be easier than trying to remember which call the thing happened that you missed, or that you were looking for, or that you remembered something happening on. So I thought I'll send an email to the Clean Network as well about this, but I just wanted to let folks know that we actually have a now nice new page for our old calls that you can search through. So I'm going to jump off to take her downstairs for a few minutes and I'll be back.
Katie, can
Unless
I ask you,
does somebody have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, just one question on that one. With the cohorts tomorrow, to your knowledge, is it going to be possible, if I bring this up to other people, that they could visit the North American cohort and still be in their state or their regional one? I mean, is it, as far as we know, one can hop around between them? It's been true of the sessions that you might sign up for a session, but you can go to any session and go on and off.
I think so. I mean, I would check with the organizers of the Institute, like Lindsay and Seth, just to double check they'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that, and I'll put in the chat this other Google Doc is the agenda for the North American cohort tomorrow. So especially anyone from Clean, if you want to pop in to any of those, feel free to. It's actually going to be in this Zoom room, the Clean Zoom room.
Okay.
I'll let you know, we have the waiting room like we do now. So I'll let you know if I recognize your name, especially. I was going to try and check against the people that are signed up for my cohort. So if there's someone else I don't recognize, not from Clean and not from my cohort, that may be something that, let me know if somebody else is interested in doing that, and I can, and just send me their name or whatever so I can look for that, just so I can kind of control who's in there. But I don't mind it as long as the Summer Institute folks wouldn't mind that. So just check with them.
If it doesn't seem like they want to do that, that's it. But if it is, I mean, because there's always encouraging people to come join Clean, be part of the network, come and do that. And the best way is come see what it's like. Nobody bites.
Exactly.
There's no one will bite you if you show up.
Yeah, so we have several folks doing other presentations, but I will talk about Clean kind of in the early afternoon there, that 1:45 slot. So that would be a good time to join, especially for Clean. So, right. Oh, you're gonna take her? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, didn't want to hold you up, but thank you.
No, you're totally fine. He came to get her first, so I didn't have to take her down. So yeah, that'd be great. Fine with me. Just check with the Climate Generation folks, but that sounds good to me.
I'll be there with the North American cohort tomorrow too, helping, which would be good. Are there any other announcements from either of you? Kind of a small group today.
Yeah, and I don't know if I said with the small group, it's kind of just informal, just a couple of things we just check in during the day that you probably already have in mind. We're going to be checking in about. So.
Yeah, I feel like, Gina, you had something on the informal discussion, but since it is a small group, we could do that another time too, unless that's something people want to talk about. But we could always wait for a larger group. But I'd say climate generation stuff, this is happening this week if anybody does want to talk more about that. And then AGU, you had mentioned at some point might be is kind of coming up, so that'd be another thing to maybe throw out there at the beginning.
Since you're bringing that up, if you would, I mentioned this. Does this sound right that the timing would be we'd want it by next week? I mean, we don't want to get it too late to have a discussion we put out. And just I like to encourage people to at least pay attention, making sure people don't miss the deadline.
Yeah,
even if,
the deadline's
the
deadline's
3rd.
in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, next week would be a good time to talk about that more.
I had it on the calendar today to talk about AGU, but I figured a lot of people wouldn't be here because of the Summer Institute, and
Yeah.
I was supposed to have Frank facilitate, but he is busy with that. And I'm still learning AGU, so I knew that if I was facilitating today, probably wouldn't be the best person to answer questions. So I kind of just pushed it off another week.
I think it's a great call, Gina, not because of the latter part. I mean, you'd still have done fine, but because, as we can see, a lot of people regular people aren't showing up, probably because of CG. So yeah, I think it's just fine.
And in my experience, I think that people tend to put off, I mean, it's a pretty short abstract for AGU, so I think people tend to put it off till that last week. So I think next week would be a better time, even just in the timing of things. Because anytime I was advertising for AGU sessions earlier in July, like more than 2 weeks out, I would get, the past few years, I'd get like nothing. And then the last week, it was like, that's when everybody submitted their stuff. So yeah, I actually think just timing wise for everybody, the Summer Institute, but also with AGU's timing and who may be able to be here, I think next week will be a better time for that discussion.
And it's okay. It's being fair to have you both be the ones who post to the listserv that is happening, because it's getting to where you can be able to remind them and kind of like, hey, if you're going to do it, you want to come, you want to be at the clean.
I told Gina, like I said, anytime I've done it more than about 2 weeks out, it wasn't that fruitful, so I didn't think it was worth the time. So yeah, I have it on our agenda to talk to Gina about that in our check-in this week, so we'll get going on that now, basically.
I totally applaud your decisions, and especially from the experience you have on things. That sounds right.
We have a few clean specific sessions, but if there's any other sessions that Gina doesn't list in an email that she sends out to the listserv about it, feel free to advertise for your own or other sessions as well.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a lot of the part that I'm most eager that we collectively do talk about is kind of strategically, I don't know, maybe one way to say it is get the balance. We want to make sure that the clean hosted, if that's not quite the word, but the clean spot, the clean pulled together places are strong. Certainly we don't want AGU to ever question whether they should be that it should be merged with something else. And at the same time, see that we're having the network be out in places where it should be. Right, that we're part of it, we're seen in other places, we're connected with it, and so on. And
and I think we have, Gina, 2 or 3 actual sessions, and then Frank and Deb are putting together a union. We have education sessions, and then Frank and Deb are putting together a union session. Is that
Frank
correct?
and Deb so they're all climate empowerment blank. And so Deb and Frank have a union session that is climate empowerment. And then there's 2 just normal sessions that are, one is focused on workforce development and professional development. The other is focused on climate resilience education in K-12 informal settings. And the other one is just a clean poster session. But yeah, we did it so that they all have that climate empowerment piece in the title so that they index together if you search them. So
Yep.
yeah, we have, so that's 4, and I'm sure there'll be other, there's always related sessions, so.
Okay.
um,
Maybe, and I think I could also mention this one of anytime my team of people are out there doing something and it could benefit Clean and the Clean network to say, hey, look, we're part of that too inherently, right? Of course, we're checking in with you and seeing that things. I always want to do that. I always want to make that open so that we're now becoming a very substantial part of the Bright Stars part of the program, the part of AGU for high school and middle school students. I mean, and we could go much more. I mean, I think our students can even do 2 posters a piece, and we've got several students who are going to be doing posters. So I certainly want to work within, since we have a lot of posters, each one can take on little pieces and bring things up. So certainly, like, the Clean network can be mentioned within that. It may not be the biggest deal, but hey, the Clean network is also, high school and middle school students consider themselves members of the Clean network, or, like in the video, without the Clean network and Clean, we couldn't do the kind of things we're doing. And having that notice, and have AGU notice that, have scientists notice that. So just know that's something we'll be looking at as we put the abstracts together, that it can do that. And, anytime you have a request, or, you give a feedback on, sometimes you just shrug your shoulders, you're sure, fine, and that's feedback. It's useful feedback. And there's some, actually that would be really useful if you could do that. We want our students to think that way, right? When you do important work, you can help, you draw support and help and education from all kinds of people. You don't, at the right time, you need to recognize that, right? It's important for students to say, when people say, well, how did you pull this off? Well, it's because we study Clean resources, right? It didn't come out of nowhere, right? So things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those were good points.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah, I think those are really good points. And I'm wondering though, the best way to kind of, because it is nice, I will say it gets a little long and tedious to try to advertise too many things in a single email. And I wonder if, how do you want to try to go about kind of making that connection, Jim?
That wasn't meant to try to get you to have to add that in. I'm just sorry. I want to make sure that was clear. Cool. It's more that as we all as Clean Network members are looking at things, we have in mind our own programs, we have in mind what AGU is, but we have in mind how to build the whole network and always clean. And I want that same attitude among our students and in what they do. And I'm letting you know that's what we want to do. It's not asking you to do more. Great. But when I do bring things up like this, your response of, yeah, that would be helpful, tells me that's good for us to do. Yeah. And if you ever respond and say, I don't know if that's really important, that tells us don't worry about it so much, right? That's fine, right?
Yeah, I think.
And we never want to do something that makes you, that makes you uncomfortable, right? In the end, it's like, no, let's not do that. So I don't think we're in that.
Always appreciate you checking in, but yeah, I'm all for it. It's like, educators are always been Clean's main audience, but love getting students involved with the Clean Network as well. And advertising Bright Stars is really important, and happy to do that kind of, as much as we can through the Clean Network. And I think that sounds great.
And maybe on that one, so sometimes you give me an itch and I'll take another itch. Something I'm making a point of. Katie and Gina, I feel that you both have been very supportive of this, and as many are. I also hear Frank being more supportive of it, openly supportive of it, is recognizing that when we speak of educators, that isn't only K-12 certified teachers. And it's not even adult educators, informal and other places. Educators can be young people, right?
For sure.
And where I'll really press on it is if we do care about indigenous knowledge and knowledge, say, of Mexican cultures and most cultures around the world, that's always the case. Education is largely peer-to-peer. Younger kids learn from older kids. And if you're not working with that and encouraging it, then you're missing a big opportunity. So another, and I guess maybe in short is, hey, our students are educators in climate change, and they want to help the clean network. So yeah, anyway, so
And
I'm
I'd
just
say
giving
along with that, that's why we talk about community engagement as a big part of education too. And it's not
Yeah.
just in schools and informal learning centers and things
Yeah.
like that. So I
And we
totally
also-
agree.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's something we could consider, you know, if you get paired up and you're working closely with that Bright Stars group, like that's something we could have. You know, the fall gets a little busy sometimes with COP and AGU clean calls, but we might be able to try to schedule like a clean call with some students presenting on a clean call, which would be
Okay.
kind of fun.
Sure.
So
That
we
can
could
happen.
talk about closer to AGU. Yeah.
It's certainly that the thing of having the students who are, you know, speaking specifically of AGU and the Bright Stars program, that clean is recognized within that. That's up to our students to do that. And just a quick one too is also that like noting, like the National Science Teachers Association is now the National Science Teaching Association. They're recognizing that it's teaching, and if they limit themselves to just teachers, they're actually missing out where a whole lot of teaching takes place. So, you know,
Totally.
yeah,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
yeah, that was a very deliberate and a lot of discussion about it. We are the
Mhm.
teaching association now. We're not the teachers association. Not that they're not the teachers association, but they
Yeah.
dropped that word.
I appreciate that because yeah, that's something that we've always struggled with. How broad do you go to? But also, you know, I think that's something that Clean prides itself on, or that I love about the Clean network myself, is that it is so broad and there are so many people doing different forms of education in different ways. You know, I mean, 800 people and not all of them show up on calls, but they all are, you know, consider themselves part of climate education in various ways. So, and that's where it was neat to look at that. We're still working on it. So I think Krista mentioned this a few weeks ago. So we're still figuring out kind of how to present that information to the Clean Network. We should maybe do a call on that too, Gina. Maybe in the fall, like you and I could present even, and with Frank, and bring Casey in or something like that. Anyways, the Clean Network analysis was interesting to see, you know, how varied it is. Like it's one of these things where I think you do network analysis, and sometimes, especially in smaller communities, they have this one measure of like being more centralized or not so centralized. And like Clean had a big node, you know, of a lot of people kind of being connected in the middle, but there was also a lot of these like peripheral kind of nodes where people are connected to each other, but not so much to the center. It was just interesting to see because we had a very, like, according to the sort of, you know, statistical measure of it, we had a non-centralized kind of community. And I thought that was really interesting because that's how I view Clean. You know, it's one of those things, as Casey said, it's not good or bad, you know, you can reach out and try to bring people more into the center and stuff, but I was like, that's kind of how I view the community though. Like we're all doing so much work in so many different ways. It's hard to really be connected to everybody. There's so many of us, but it's neat to see that actually, that so many people kind of work in various shapes and forms, you know, in climate education. Anyways, that's kind of a tangent. But.
And looking for your all feedback, I mean, you all meet with people and see things and get a sense of, you know, people who control the purse strings or have to make decisions. You know, they're gonna give their feedback over. This is great. Okay, we're okay with this. All right, or we don't want you to do that, and we don't want the latter, right? When it's we don't want you to do that, we don't do that. When it's great, we do that. When it's in the middle, but it's good, we, you know, work toward things. So it's, you know, that's stuff that I, you know, have guesses but don't always know. Where I'm going with is how Clean is so well structured of having the resource, the library, right? And what Clean is mostly funded to do, and then the network. With what the network can do and connected, it allows Clean to play this big role. And like when we bring in other parts of what's going on in education and action on climate change, where I'm going with this, it doesn't require a lot. It doesn't require NOAA to cough up more money. right? It isn't coming back and asking for money, or why are you diverting money now to this when you're supposed to be doing this? No, these are network members are providing this. So I mean, from a funder standpoint, NOAA standpoint, or maybe the University of Colorado, isn't that what you want? You want to provide seed money. You want something where your money gets leveraged and multiplied. I mean, most funders almost demand that, right? If they don't see that, that's not a program they want to support. And it just, if that gets, by just nodding your head, you're telling me a little bit, the thing of, is that the kind of the sense you get? Because if you get it's good, then we're on the right track. If we get it's bad, then oops, okay, we have to think about it.
I think so. I mean, I think that's one of the values of Clean Network, and I think that to some extent there is this sort of idea, like I do this with other organizations I'm part of, I just went to a conference with the Visitor Studies Association because part of my job, I do evaluation on our projects. And so that group, I volunteer for one of their committees, and that's, a lot of how they continue. They have some people who work more in the administration and get paid to do that. But most of us, a lot of the stuff that's run in that organization, including how to, planning the conference and things like that, is volunteer run. So I'm not saying that there's not place for that. That is one of the big values of Clean. And I will also caveat that we have been struggling sometimes too with the fact that we don't get funded to manage the Clean Network side of things, and not because we need funding to do things like this, like the calls, but we try to expand and do more. Some leadership board folks talked about trying to sometimes for speakers, it'd be nice to have funds like honorarium and things like that you can offer to people to speak on calls like this, or we've been talking about or some of the discussions that came out of the leadership board and the Clean Call strategic visioning work that we did last year in the spring on a couple of calls and with the leadership board. One of the things that Gina's been working on, you might have seen the save the date, is this event, and we're kind of struggling with we don't have any sort of seed money to get started on that event, and we're going to charge a little bit to try to be able to kind of get some money to be able to continue doing that event. That's really one of the few climate education focused events, and that we can kind of keep that going. And that is something that we're hoping can be part of the Clean Network, but also, bring people in more broadly as well. But yeah, we struggle with that sometimes, as everybody in the Clean Network does. Not having funding for their work can be hard and challenging, and it's good to pay people for the efforts they put in. So yes, Jim, I totally agree, 100%. And I'll just also add and caveat for the record that more funding would help and be good to continue those efforts, so.
Does this have it right, Katie, that from the funding standpoint, sometimes a lot of times it's the opportunity, there's the need, but then there's the opportunities. If and when it ever comes up that there's an opportunity or question like to have more funding for, say, the network side or things along that side, you'd have for me, and I hope for many of the other members, is okay, then it would be our duty to provide some of the details or things that show that the money will be well spent, so that you put in for the money and you'll get that grant and you'll get that extra money and so on, right? That's part of it. It's like we're not closing the door. We're not doing anything to close the door on it being funded, specifically funded when it happens. Okay. On the other hand, right now it is not specifically funded, right? And so we have to make sure that we're doing things that make it happen and do things, but recognize that it isn't funded. So it's important that we as members don't do anything and put a whole bunch on you and Gina and Anna or Frank, that now you're going, wait a second, it's one thing for this thing to be something that we kind of, it's this marginal thing that we do in terms of our week. And there's another thing, now this is becoming this big thing. We're organizing conferences and we have people coming in and they're talking about something way away from climate change and energy and into something else, but they want to be part of the network, and I guess we have to let them in. No, we don't, that's crazy, right? So I mean, we have to make sure, we're having that balance of recognizing always it is not technically funded, and we need to make sure that you, Gina and Anna, always can do your job well. right? Never be distracted or pulled away or having to answer for why did you spend too much of your work doing this? I mean, that we never want to put you in, we never will want to put you in that position. And we're always making sure that, but that also means checking in with you, making sure that we never start drifting into territory. You go, let's just not do that.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
And because that is the value, right? Like that's where we do put some amount of funding from Clean towards this, even though it's not specifically funded, just by supporting Gina and I on the Clean funding. And we spend some of our time doing Clean Network work, just through that, we sort of fund it through Clean. And that is valuable because like you said, the network is valuable. It's a great community of practice. It's great to support and keep going. And we do appreciate the sort of grassroots effort from the network members like yourself, who help to support that too. And that, like you said, it gets amplified, so it's worthwhile. So yeah, totally 100%. And we appreciate you and all you do. But you also checking in with us on everything, like you're saying, Jim. So yeah, totally. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I was actually gonna say, I'm gonna leave soon because I have to eat some lunch before I have like 3 meetings in a row after this one. And this was one of the only ones I could kind of jump out of. So sorry, did you have any other questions for me before I go?
How about this? I'd like to mention before you go, but it can wait another time. There's no urgency on this. It's not, doesn't have to do it. Is a subject that if there were time today, I would just bring up the question of, I mean, first of all, you guys you all have done such wonderful about the thing of putting in events into it, including the tweet that just went out on Friday about, Clean, and that's all very real. It's just, okay, so okay, mentioning that at some point, I'll just check in with you all, that when I put on the calendar about the event in Berkeley, Albany, I meant it kind of as a test case to see how did that work for you, right? And I would say that your response was, let's go with this, let's do things like this. I can put in a lot of events and encourage other people to do that too, but it's just kind of checking it before,
Yeah, so
we go.
that's a great question. We should probably address that. We were planning to a little later in the summer, probably closer to the school year, because we've been working on this calendar for a few months now and trying to build it out. So in case Melissa, in case you're curious, it's just on the front page of Clean. If you scroll towards the bottom, we have this events calendar and we're trying to build it out. And it's kind of a mixture of professional development events and then Clean Network events are kind of the 2 calendars so far that we've put onto it. Those are the 2 sort of colorations, is network events and then professional development events. So we've been working on it. We've been trying to kind of workshop it and pilot it. And so we're going to share it pretty soon, but we just haven't quite finalized everything yet but you can see there's a button to suggest an event. And so, yeah, Jim, that worked great. And that was really nice actually to have another event come in from somebody from the outside versus just us testing. But we haven't quite set up our whole how we're going to have some students help us to enter events and things like that. So I don't think we're quite ready to advertise it widely and get bombarded from a bunch of people from the Clean Network for events yet, but we are planning to for this school year. That is the plan. So hopefully in August, that's something that we can bring up with everybody and advertise more widely through the email list and things like that. So,
and not to keep you too long, maybe what I can do is promise you that my intention, or what I promised you, is that what will come from me or everything is meant to be going at your pace and in your way, not trying to overwhelm it or change it. But there is more that, so it can be, that wasn't a one-off thing, right? Oh,
yeah.
No,
I figured.
I guess we meet we have an event once a year. No, there's stuff going on. But
and I think, and we want this to be filled, right? Like we want this calendar to be full and look busy and things like that. So we are excited about that. So that was really nice to see that. And and then Gina could test out kind of advertising through social media and stuff. So that worked quite well. And we really appreciate that. And so, at some point in the next couple of weeks, even we'll be ready to kind of work with you more on that.
Also, a promise to you is I don't think I would put up anything that you would be uncomfortable with, but I want you to know that I won't be offended. It's just the way we work together, that if I were to put an event and for some reason you thought, let's not associate with Clean with this, or let's not put that's too many or something, I would want you to have the, that, I mean, just know that I would not be, oh, why did they do that? Just, take it down, right? Or say, Jim, let's not do that one, or let's not do one like that again, right? Because we want
Yeah,
it
and
to
that's
be.
why that's why we have that suggest an event thing, because that's where we figured we could have some kind of control on it. So this is an open thing. Anybody can find this website, and we have that with our feedback form. Sometimes spam finds it, so that's why we have the button, and you can't just add things straight to the calendar. So so we'll have a check on it and control, and we can let you know if anything we feels like doesn't work, but I'm sure nothing from you. That's much more of just like if some spam gets in there and things like that mostly, so yeah, so that's great. Cool. I am going to jump off soon. Are there any other thoughts or questions for me before I go?
Real quick, I was just wondering what do you see happening with the teacher cohort that's going to be created tomorrow with the kind of the local North American group? Like, what is that group going to do moving forward? Or are you guys is Clean going to coordinate those efforts for the cohort?
Yes. So, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not sure. I'll be totally honest with you. I'm going to see how it works out. Last year, I had a cohort that came out of that, and I tried to organize several meetings to kind of keep things going. And I just had nobody show up to them despite trying to organize them at times that, most people said they were available. I had like one person show up to one of 3 things that I organized to try to kind of keep that conversation going. And so I'm thinking it may be better to sort of do more email communications this time and just like get people on a list, like our teacher newsletter list, and we have, but Clean does have a teacher ambassador program. We've also been trying to kind of expand and grow and do more with. We started out as something that like they help us advertise Clean and we pay for them to do things, like go to conferences to talk about Clean or whatever, because we can't be everywhere, just Gina and I, all the time and on it. And so, but we're thinking of like, can we expand that and create that as more of a community where teachers can kind of connect and support each other. And so that's the idea behind the cohort as well, is to have a community where people can connect and support each other. So it didn't work very well the way that I did it last year. So I have to kind of rethink how that's going to work this year. And I want to build in the folks from last year's cohort and our teacher ambassadors to that. So we have somebody else who works on Clean, Alicia, who helps kind of manage the teacher ambassador program. So she does an RU in the summer. So we're thinking this fall, we're going to work a lot more on that with her and try to figure out how to keep the cohort moving forward. So I'm going to talk about that with the cohort tomorrow and see what works well with them. The thing that I think hinders it with the North American cohort more than the other cohorts is that it is a much larger regional area. People don't have that same regional connection that they have like when they're all from California or all from New York or, whatever. Even like this year, we kind of usurped the Southeast cohort too, because the person who was organizing that one dropped out. But even last year when we didn't have the Southeast states as part of it, we, traversed like Montana and Idaho and Oregon and Oklahoma and Missouri and, a huge swath in kind of the middle of the country, and any international people that didn't fit into like Canada or whatever. Like this year I saw 2 folks from different countries in Africa and I think someone from somewhere else. Last year we had somebody from like somewhere in the South Pacific, and so it's also kind of hard for people to make those same kinds of like connections to each other when they don't have that ability to talk about the specific regional aspects of like what's happening in their state with climate education, things like that. So I think that is a bigger challenge with the North America cohort. So yes, to answer your question, I am trying to figure out, do that and figure out how that works. But I'm not sure exactly what it looks like yet. I want to talk to people in the cohort tomorrow about it and then kind of work with Alicia on the ambassador program and see how we can kind of bring folks into something. And maybe it's not having meetings, maybe it's having periodic kind of events where people can come and do some PD here and there, but maybe some of it's just having kind of an email list like we do with Clean where we can, send folks information and new resources and things as we come across them. So I'm still trying to kind of figure that out. But overall, the answer is yes, we are planning to do something or another.
Yeah.
What it looks like, though, I don't know exactly. So are you joining the climate? Have you been part of the Climate Change Institute this week, Melissa? Or
I'm not part of it this week. No, we decided that I did not have time to attend like the full thing, but yeah, so I'm probably not eligible to attend part tomorrow. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to join I put that agenda in the list since you're part of the Clean Network, as I said, if you want to join my day, it's not a problem to me. Like the registration fee and all of that was much more for the first couple of days. If you want to join parts of it, or if UCAR has any interest in kind of helping to think about and, you know, join forces on some amount of like cohort work in the future too, and supporting these teachers, I'd be happy to chat and connect about that. So yeah, join for if and what you can tomorrow. If you want to, feel free.
Yeah.
And then you and I can keep talking about maybe thoughts of if there's ways UCAR and Clean can both, you know, support these teachers, because it doesn't have to be Clean. It's, you know, they've asked me as Clean to do the North America cohort because Clean is a more national climate change education program.
It makes
you
sense.
know?
Yeah.
So
No, I think we would be interested in that because we're in the like kind of brainstorming phase of trying to figure out some new PD offerings.
Cool.
And to kind of have like a menu of PD offerings that are not just like one-offs, but things that we consistently support. And you know, climate change, of course, would be like one of the main topics. Earth system sciences would be another topic. So we're just kind of interested in getting in touch with maybe some different networks of teachers and seeing like what they need, like what they want, like what we could develop that would be useful that's not already there, you know. So it would be kind of cool to have like a group of teachers to just kind of get in touch with and kind of learn about what we could do to support them better.
Yeah, that sounds really great, actually. And that's something like, so Jessica Bean is presenting tomorrow, and she's got a group, you know, she works with teachers and has kind of her professional learning community, she calls it. And we talked last year about trying to kind of merge efforts a little bit with the cohort and that. And then, like I said, I just didn't get it going in the fall as much as I wanted to, and then went on maternity leave. So my side of it kind of fell off there. But Lynn from NCSE was part of it last year too, and was trying to kind of do similar work with their teacher ambassadors at NCSE. So there's several of us who are trying to do similar things with teachers and having a sort of group support network. And I think it'd be worthwhile to team up our efforts and think about that, especially because UCAR, or, you know, I mean, you have local teachers, but so does Clean because we work in Colorado, but, you know, you're, and NCAR's.
We have a national presence.
National presence, exactly.
NCAR, right? The N
exactly. And NCSC does too, right? And I know Jessica Bean's teachers stretch from California to like Maryland and all in between too. So we're one of some of the few organizations along with Climate Generation that really does that more national work. So I think it'd be worthwhile to be in touch and talk about that more. So yeah, join tomorrow for what you can, and then let's keep talking about that.
That sounds great. Thank you. All right, get some
thanks.
lunch.
I'm gonna jump off. Yeah, thanks. All right, I'll see you all soon.
Bye.
Good. Good conversation. Melissa, do you know if you're planning on going to AGU or not?
We were just talking about that today, and I'm sure that there will be some presence from NCAR, UCAR at AGU because there always is, but I don't think that us at SciEd we're talking about putting in a submission this time. We are going to do AMS though, since it's going to be in Denver.
Nice. Oh yeah.
So in January. So I think we're going to have a larger presence at AMS this year.
Okay. That makes more sense. Katie usually goes to AMS, so you know, she'll be there probably. But
yeah,
I didn't realize it was in Denver this year. That'll be good. But yeah, I'm hoping to send an email through the listserv sometime this week with the names of our sessions so that people can start submitting abstracts. But yeah, so not really
Well, I
relevant.
will
here.
definitely I'll read through them, and if there's anything that our current project work, I think
Yeah,
would fit into those topics, I'll definitely bring it up and make a case for us to participate, but I'm not sure. 'Cause we're kind of in this phase right now where a bunch of our grant funded projects have just ended. And so we're kind of like trying to, so we don't have a lot of new stuff to disseminate right now that's specifically like in the
Right.
climate education world,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of an in-between phase.
Mhm.
And one of it and Gina, this is also catching up as you are doing incredibly well on AGU, and that is, yeah, I don't know how much, where we're going to see the level of engagement with AGU this year, because I haven't seen like who else is doing stuff. We'll see that happen, and we're putting in our submissions in pretty late too, right? We're doing. However, I don't think I've seen anything that is supplanting AGU as being the single biggest place where not only climate scientists come together in one place. I mean, it is the single biggest gathering of climate scientists in the world, at least in the United States, but also has historically been the single place where climate educators of different programs come together. And so it may be down this year, maybe normal, but I don't see anything else taking that ultimate place. And so that's an important thing, and that we're strong on it. Maybe one I will just give of looking ahead, because AGU is not going anywhere. I mean, it's very solid in things. For whatever it's worth, next year, 2023, it will be back in San Francisco. So that's where we're based primarily. We're not huge in things, but that means that we'll be there. It also will mean that our students who are in the Bay Area who are doing AGU presentations will be able to be in person. And so I'm giving little things that, and we're so much more than last time I was in San Francisco and pre-COVID, where there's this whole section of AGU, which is these high school and middle school students, that's like 2 rows over from education. Well, by then it'll be much more like this other part of what the climate education world is here's this section of these high school and middle school students doing it and reaching out to climate scientists and so on. So anyway, just giving the sense of no matter what happens with AGU this year, it's going to continue to be this important part of the year in climate education.
Yeah, totally. And this accelerating climate education and literacy, climate empowerment and literacy summit that we're planning, that I've sent the save the date out for. This is very much a pilot year, and we're tempering expectations, I think, for ourselves, but hopefully that will in future years become a space in which climate educators can come together and be kind of a venue for that, because we don't have our own space. So that's kind of what we're trying to do with that summit. But I'm hoping by the end of this week I can get the registration out for that. So, and that's in November.
That's office. I know several of us are interested in that. That looks exciting.
Good. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming very fast. So we're just we decided to have, like Katie said, a $20 fee for people to attend just so they have some skin in the game. And it's been a little bit complicated trying to figure out some of the red tape with the university and accepting money. So it's kind of taken a while to figure that out, but I think we're almost there. So I'm glad to hear that people are excited though, because we're just kind of putting it out there and seeing, I don't know who's going to come. I don't know how many people want to register. So I don't know. We'll see. It's very much a pilot year, but
if I just give
What's
a reaction.
the format going to be?
It's
go ahead,
2
Melissa.
days.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
It's 2 days, 12 to 5 Eastern, and mostly discussion. We're going to have at least one keynote, but it's going to be a lot of discussion, networking, breakout. It's going to be mostly that, because we really want people to talk to each other. And the whole point is to create collaborations and get people talking to each other that might not normally have the chance to. So there'll be a lot of networking and stuff.
So, what I happen to be, well, there's two of us who are Clean Wet Network members talking to you, so it's a small
Yeah.
conversation. And so I want to just put this in that frame though, but however, feedback from those of us who are here toward it,
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic. That's such an important event that's being put
Yeah.
together. A feedback on it is I think it's the right balance. There needs to be the events and gatherings which are specifically focused on climate education, climate action, energy. Absolutely. And that there is our participation in events that are broader in nature, because each of them have their function and each of them have their balance. It's not a choice between, and it's not a competition between them. Like, well, why are we doing one and not, why are we doing both? And so I think, Melissa, your nod and everything is, we're all in agreement that the Accels, is that how you say it?
Yep.
Yeah, that Accels is right on time. It should be supported and people should take it. We need to have it. It's very important. An example of the AGU, right, is 26,000 scientists are there.
Yeah.
This is my estimate, and I haven't had anyone contradict me on this, about 8,000 of those could be called climate scientists. That then some way or another are doing that. And you have all this education that goes on, that historically climate has been the kind of the anchor education subject within the education subject, the things, which that's something that's been long earned, right? And AGU appreciates, we're not going to see that, what are we going to give that up to, right? I mean, this is this big place that is, and they organize it, they bring people together. I mean, there's a lot of the overhead that Clean doesn't have to do to that. I mean, there's all these different benefits, but there's just recognizing that climate education and climate science is part of something broader is really important. If we just get to be this little silo, there's real danger in that. Mm-hmm. And something, okay, maybe just doing this one too, is Gina, I'm so appreciative of you and Katie in particular, Anna and Frank, on recognizing like the events that we have long been doing. I'm just giving an example of this is, there are education events in different parts of the country, the Bay Area, DC, and so on, that are on climate change. But compared to events that are on broader topics, they're minuscule, right? Events of 300,000 people on STEM education. In Bay Area, it's 30,000, 15,000, 10,000, and these are all during the year, where because we participate in those, where they draw to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and then they put us at the prominent front of the event, right? And so nobody misses what we do and they take part of it. There's nothing that the climate change education world can top that. I mean, it's such a great opportunity, but it's because we're participating in something that's more STEM in general. It's like we're part of STEM, and they want us because they know it's important to them. It's important to them. They do it. They want to see it, that public cares about it. This is relevant. You've made it fun, all those different things. I guess I'm just bringing the thing of that balance between specifically climate change events and participating in larger ones in character, places like STEM where we belong. I think you all at Clean are getting it right. It's a great balance.
And you're part of that, so thank you.
Yeah, but it could be. I mean, maybe it's also recognizing, because Clean is funded by the federal government, it's going to have to do what the federal government wants to do, right? And there's sometimes we just do what they do, and there's sometimes there's doing what they do, but then kind of showing them, hey, look, if we do this too, it's good. And then after, it may take them a few years, but after a while they recognize, actually, this is pretty good. Let's do that. At the events that we're taking part in, federal government programs are all over the place, right? There's NASA, NOAA doesn't so much, but you name the events, the federal government agencies that have STEM, they're at the events. But historically, climate change has not come in as a federal government program. NOAA or NASA doesn't bring their things. We bring them, and then we bring them into it. But I mean, you kind of said that for whatever reason, the federal government programs that are in climate education have been pretty focused on K-12 education, right? That's where it happens. And then second, maybe the museums, but other forms of education are just, that's not what we do. That's not what we're doing. And I'm seeing I'm seeing some opening to that, right? Frank is saying a lot that, look, it's all forms of education. And that's a real good thing. And I think Clean is adjusting well to that. Because so much goes on in education that is not taking place in a school or only in a school. Right? So anyway, just backing all that up. Yeah, applause to what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're our, I feel like you're the Clean hype man. You're always supporting us.
But the message is to get out to the other Clean members. Look,
Yeah.
we have to contribute to the network. It's not just we benefit from it, right?
Yeah, it's for everyone. So it's true. I want to get it out to everyone.
Do you guys know at AGU, have we historically had a lot of the scientists be interested in attending the education events at AGU? Yeah,
I'm going to let Gina respond to that, but Alyssa, I definitely have opinions on that one.
because that seems like a great, what I was just thinking, what you were saying, Jim, about all of these climate scientists are gathered in one area, and we, at least my experience is that, at NCAR, there's a lot of, most grants have like an education component that they have in their grant, and like the educators, we're almost sadly like an afterthought, right? Like they're always kind of like working on their research, and they've got all these, and then like, oh yeah, and then we've got this like 60 grand that's earmarked for education, and then they come to us and they're like, what can we do? But like, and we're always trying to get them to think about like not us being the afterthought, but like us being like involved like the whole way, right? So that we can really do something great like with their work and get them involved and get them more access to the public and things like that. And so I was just like, wow, it'd be really cool if at AGU the educators hosted events that like were really interesting to the scientists, so that we could get the scientists to go and just be more aware of how they could leverage the work of climate educators and things like that for their missions, for their grant work.
It's okay if I say something, Gina, or you go ahead first.
No, you go ahead, because you probably attended at EGU more.
I have a lot, but I definitely want to make sure you're catching up quick on things. In my opinion, in my observation, this has not been our community's strong point. That AGU has been approached as like we have, if I put it in really crass terms, it's not as bad as this, but we have the education silo. We do the education stuff over here. And then there's the other 90% of the AGU, and they don't talk to each other. We do our thing, they do our thing, we don't talk to each other. Okay. I have never been for that, and have tried to break through on that and things. And if I encourage other people to see the same. What I have found works, at least as a first step, and what we've done is we can get to the stuff you're speaking of, like there's an event and we invent this. What it is during the conference, spend some time where we go into their sessions and we just participate. We ask questions, we're seeing they were doing things. And if I give an example of how just a little bit of effort, what proves what you're saying is true, Melissa, that typically what will happen is there'll be a big presentation by climate scientists. And the most common one was Ben Santer, who's one of the best known climate scientists. He always like has a sellout crowd, like capacity crowd. It's a big thing. He give his presentations and things. And we would go in, and either students would be with me or I would ask questions on behalf of the students. So we would go in and at the end nicely put in a question, and they'd always have elevate it to one of the moderators would say, well, we've got to take this question. And in front of everybody, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, climate scientists and things, is asked this question of like, we're at such and such school and we really follow you. You've done a thing. We have a question for you. And people are like crying. I mean, and he is just like, looks stunned, right? I mean, he's like, they're so inspired. And he gives this long response of like, no, you have to go into climate scientists. You have to go into climate. I mean, they want to engage with students. They certainly want to engage with educators. And so, I mean, I think I always find that's the best way is you go to other people's thing and you take the first step, and then they want to come back. Then they come back to see you. But AG was they got all these sessions. Anyone can show up. So.
It's a great point, Melissa. Not one that I've really thought about, but it's probably, like Jim said, very prominent maybe even a problem in our community. So yeah, it's something I hadn't thought of before, and important to mull over and be aware of.
And something I want to do just another step on it is like in our students' posters, they are crediting AGU science that they have learned from, that they are applying to climate action. So, I mean, they're bringing the science part into this other part of AGU for middle and high school students. So it's doing the bridging, but by leading by example, right? And then, you know, it's being the Pied Piper, right? If you come on, you start showing how it's done, other people join along with you.
With that, it's
Yeah.
12:01, 2:01 Eastern. So we can probably sign off. But this is a great discussion. It was kind of nice having a smaller group. We could have more direct conversation about things. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time today, everybody.
Agreed.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
rest of your day.
Mhm.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.